Welcome to the Keeping IT Real podcast. This podcast features honest and transparent conversations about what it takes to manage corporate technology and expenses today. Each episode, listen to true and personal stories from IT professionals who are working hard to make sure their business stays connected and competitive. I'm your host, Jethro Castillo, and let's meet our next guest. Today, I am joined by Adam Gruszcynski, the Director of IT at Potawatomi Casino Hotel, one of the most popular entertainment and hospitality destinations in Wisconsin. This is actually Adam's second time on the podcast, the first time being in January of last year. We figured it would be a cool time to catch up, see what's new, what's old, and everything in between. Adam and I have some topics that we could talk about, but I think we'll just kind of see where the wind takes us. Adam, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me again, Jethro. I think we're going to have a fun discussion today.
So it's been, a year and 2 months. I'm going to kind of open the floor to you to be like, what happened in the last year and 2 months?
Sure.
What's been going on?
It seems like it's been longer since I've been on the podcast. At least maybe it feels that way because we've accomplished so much since the last time we talked. We've been really busy as an organization trying to up our standard of what we offer our guests here, being the number one entertainment destination in Wisconsin and the Midwest. A summer ago, we completed a $190 million renovation of our gaming floor. So that renovated completely the entire second floor and the original part of the casino on the first floor. And I would argue we brought Las Vegas to the great state of Wisconsin, that when you walk in our property, you think you're in Las Vegas and you don't have to travel, at least from Milwaukee, 4 hours to get there. We have all the flashing lights, the bells and whistles, and all the, lights that you would expect a casino to have in Las Vegas here at our property. And I think that's very unique for a Native American owned property, that you typically don't see that level of modernization. And that's something we have here. And I take great pride in, not just from an organizational standpoint, but from the amount of technology that went in to make that happen. It's something to talk about. And I hope we can, touch a little bit on it. Besides having that Las Vegas feel, we opened a bunch of new restaurants and concepts for our guests. One of our bigger ones that got a lot of publication is we partnered with Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley from the band Kiss, and we opened up a Rock Brews restaurant here, which is very a fun feel. It's got that rock and roll vibe. All the food, all the drinks are rock and roll geared, and the thing that I learned, working on when we were building this restaurant, is that each location is specific. And it's not like a cookie cutter, recipe with Rock and Brews, that each location is customized to the space that it's built in. In Wisconsin, we actually have a pretty good musical heritage. So there is a piece of art, if you will, that was created just for us. Not only do we have a great musical heritage, but we're also, one of the original leaders in the beer industry. So the piece of art has, beer tappers from all the beers that are in or were in the great state of Wisconsin going around it. And then the inside, it's all the musical acts that have originated from Wisconsin. And it might not be musical acts like Les Paul. He's the founder of, guitaring and modern guitars. Like, he's on there. The Violent Femmes, Garbage, Steve Miller Band. Like, we have some good, history here in the musical space. And then, Kiss. If you think of Kiss, and when they're in their makeup, they all have their unique faces. Being, that we're the Dairyland state, people associate cows with us. So they took, four skulls of cows and painted them up to make them look like each member of Kiss. So, like, they kind of do that fun stuff, to make each experience unique. Besides Rock and Brews, we opened up our own unique branded coffee shop, Cream City Coffee Company, which is doing really, really, really well as a coffee shop that offers, coffee, donuts, other, pastries that you would associate with coffee. And it also offers a unique line of alcoholic drinks to go with that. And that menu changes seasonally. And that's doing so well. One of the things that got remodeled is we opened up a new concept that seems to be kind of popular as I travel throughout the United States, like the food hall, where you have multiple small restaurants all in one big opening. We opened up what we call Marketplace. And then within Marketplace, we have 7 different concepts. 6 of them are food related, and one of them is just a bar. But what was really unique from that perspective is with all of those restaurants in that one single place, there's only one restaurant that has one cashier. The rest is all done by technology. So you order your food by technology, you're alerted that it's, being prepared, it's ready for you to pick up. And, we're really, proud of how the technology has augmented the need to have wait staff, people take your orders, deliver your food. Where we were able to save operational costs and offer a high concept venue that delivers great food just basically using technology. So that was really fun to be a part of. We also opened up a state-of-the-art sports book. In the United States, we're in the top 3 for retail sports books. We do really, really, really well here. And I never thought I would be, involved in designing a sports book, but we have a 2,000 square foot 4K LED wall that displays all the sports. There's 13 different layouts that a screen can have. And within each layout, you can have different screens, right? And the most we have is 57 different screens. So technically you could watch 57 different sporting events at one time. And with March Madness, just kicking off, that was a fun, exciting place to be. The Super Bowl was the first, in February was the first Super Bowl we were open, and it was just a fun, exciting spot. And then on top of it, within our sports book, we have a broadcast booth. So we're trying to be the place to be where if you do radio, you're doing radio out of our broadcast booth. And if you're on a podcast, very much like this, we have the ability to record podcasts either on site with both people, or we can do it over, Zoom, Google Meet, whatever. So we're really trying to get that off the ground. ESPN does weekly broadcast shows from there, and we have a lot of other local radio stations, sports stations that do broadcast live out of the broadcast booth. And I had no idea how to run a broadcast booth. We had to hire a person specifically to handle, all of the audio and visual components that go into that. But that was a fun learning experience. Another thing that I know you and I talked about, not on the previous podcast, but just through emails and LinkedIn, is last summer we had to build a temporary outdoor concert venue, to sit 5,000 people. And we had a concert series outside, and our first musical act ever was Snoop Dogg. I never went to school on how to learn how to build an outdoor concert arena, and we weren't giving, much time. Our leadership, had a very lofty goal for us with a very tight, time frame, and working together with not just IT, but all the other departments that all worked hard to make that a reality, from facilities to food and beverage to housekeeping to security, to make that, a thing that it was a destination last summer where people were coming here. That was pretty fun and exciting. And who doesn't love Snoop Dogg? I mean, he's got so many hits, whether it's his own hits or hits on other people's records. And that was just, one of those things I don't think I'll ever forget. That night was pretty special.
Well, this is definitely the catch up of all catch ups.
We've been busy.
Yeah. And this is awesome to hear. Obviously my head is swimming with questions. 2 distinct paths I want to go in. Obviously, as part of the entertainment and hospitality kind of industry and being what you guys are, a huge part of it is, of course, paying attention to the ultimate experience for the end user, right? The customer, the people coming in, and all of the projects that you have just shared, which obviously I want to ask more about in the future or later on, is tailored towards that, like 100%. I wonder though, and this is, I guess, the direction. For that to happen, I have to believe that there also must be a really good experience internally, a really well-oiled machine or a good IT culture. And maybe it's not, but talk about that a little bit. How the way you talk about it, there's so much passion and so much excitement, right? And also, I do follow you on LinkedIn, and I get to see kind of how you post and what you post, and a lot of celebrating what you do, but also celebrating the people on your team and stuff like that. And so it seems to be a lot of genuine sort of team building in that sense. I want to talk about that a little bit too, of just the experience.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like
culture.
Let's go 2 paths, and then we went down a path with like 4 different paths to go to. But
yeah, well, yeah, I know.
It's a lot of the stuff. One of the things I'll be here 17 years in July, and one of the questions I get asked often by people who find out I've been here so long is, what's kept you here? And in the 5 minutes I just talked about of all the things that we just accomplished over the last year and a half since we talked, that's what keeps me here. Like, we're a decent sized IT shop, but we do run lean. So we're not masters of anything. We're jacks of all trades, and we get to work on things that I would never ever be able to work on if I was in a larger organization, maybe a healthcare provider or financial services, where I might just be doing sand storage administration or server farm administration. Here, we don't have that. We have to be flexible and fluid enough to go with how the market is determining what's the next best guest experience, or what are we doing to, increase the guest experience, make their stay here longer, more enjoyable. When they leave here, they're like, man, I can't believe what a great time I had. I want to come back tomorrow, or tell their friends and family. So we're constantly looking at that guest experience. And for me, that really kind of changed when we got our new CIO here, which I mentioned on our last podcast, that his two questions for should we do anything is, does it improve the guest experience, or does it make the team member experience better or more efficient so that they offer a better customer service experience? If it doesn't do one of those two things, we have to pause and reevaluate how important it is to do. And it all starts with that mind frame that I didn't have that, 2-3 years ago. I was just like, all right, you want to do it? It could be the worst, experience, but if that's what I'm being told to do, I'll do it. And that's not the case anymore. Like, we evaluate those two criteria, and if it meets it or meets one and we can justify something else, maybe there's an ROI that we can save money, or, whatever, that is all factored in, but it all centers around the guest experience. And in the last couple of years, the state of Illinois is just to the south of us. They've approved a bunch of more private casinos to be built. So we drew a lot from the Chicagoland area. Now, with there being more casinos, they don't necessarily have to drive that hour and 45 minutes north to Milwaukee. So we have to make sure we're on point from what we're offering, that we're staying on top of market trends. What is Vegas doing? What are other, maybe not Vegas casinos doing, but other properties doing that seem to be doing really well that maybe other people aren't doing? Can we take that idea and morph it into our own and create our own unique experience and get that as a way to get you in the door? And then also from a guest service experience, what are we doing? Are we saying hello when you walk in? Are we saying, thanks for coming, have a great day? Are we learning people's names and then remembering them and saying, oh, Alan, it's great. I haven't seen you in a month. Hope, how's the wife? How are the kids? It's those two types of mentalities that have really changed. And that also comes in with the IT culture of what myself and my CIO have been trying to change here, that make us fluid and being able to adjust, to these, shifting priorities, because it wasn't on anyone's radar to build a concert series. And then we were told, all right, everything we're doing, pause. We got to get this done. We have to shift timelines. We have to shift priorities. I don't know how to do it. It's going to be a learning experience. We're going to figure out and we're going to make it work. And lo and behold, we do. And then when those types of things, come to a conclusion, all right, we can pick up on whatever we paused. So being able to be flexible is also, something that is an important aspect of working in IT and the other, departments here, because, we could get a new, project coming out of nowhere at any time, which is also part of the fun of working here. It's never the same old. I don't know what to expect. I like that discovery when I work in today. Everything I could plan could be shot out the window because, hey, this new exciting thing is coming. Let's dive into it.
I don't want to pretend that I have read this book in its entirety, and I don't want to pretend I've read this book more than 5 pages in, but it's called Unreasonable Hospitality, and it talks about, here we go.
You can't see it. I read the book, and I actually gave it to one of my managers to read, and this is my note to follow up with her on it. And that book, I highly recommend for anybody looking to change the guest experience in your restaurant. I will make the first third of the book is maybe the author's history of how he got into managing the restaurant business, but how he took a restaurant and made it the #1 restaurant in the entire world in New York City is a fascinating journey of all the things his team did to make that. And I think the biggest takeaway is it wasn't just him. He empowered his team to be creative, to think outside the box of how can we improve things, find things your team is passionate about that is at work, and then put them in charge of that thing. Because chances are, if they're passionate about it, they're going to see it succeed and not fail, and they'll bend over backwards to make sure it succeeds. It's a great book.
Well, now I'm trying to remember if you had recommended that to me on the first podcast, and that's where I got it from, because that's crazy that you've read that. But you talking about the whole focuses of the CIO, especially, that was what the book that for immediately came to mind.
Like one of the things they did in the book, and I can't translate this to IT, or at least I haven't found a way to yet, is but like the wait staff developed sign language that they could give each other about like where people are in the course of their menu. So they knew what to bring, if they needed to bring new silverware, new plates, like the thing that cleans the table. They had a sign language so nobody would hear them talk, but it was just cues to them to be like Johnny on the spot. And like just that concept of that's, the thinking and the mentality that went into making this like the best guest experiences. I try to, do that every day, not to the success of this person though. I was going to kind of transition into one of the other, forks in the road you gave me about IT culture. And that is something I've been focused a lot on here. Not that it was bad, pre me taking this position, but I felt there was room for improvement. And I like to think there improvements have been made in like the 2.5 years I've been in this position. And it's not necessarily big glamorous stuff or creating the sign language to offer better guest experiences. I mean, sometimes it's just simple things. I mean, it wasn't my idea. It was the leader of my help desk team that said, we don't visit everyone's desk all the time to fix problems because a lot of the problems now can be fixed remotely through technology. But when we do, not all the time is the person sitting at their desk. They might be away at lunch or they went home for the day, and it's the time, we were able to grab their PC, their printer, whatever is the problem. We just want to let them know somebody from IT was here. So she developed creating a business card that was, the one side followed, the standard for all of our business cards here, but the other side was like how to contact the IT help desk. And then everyone who left their like a little personal note, like, hey, Howard was here, smiley face, or Javier was here, call me with any questions. Not a big gesture, but just to let someone know that IT was here, and then a personal touch from the person. Small gestures sometimes go long ways, and that's one of the things that I'm not taking credit for, but it was a great idea that came from my help desk leader. And we've done a lot of other stuff. You mentioned follow me on LinkedIn, and I am by means no way the smartest person in the room, in the department. I like to surround myself with people who are smarter than me that can give me information to make informed decisions. And I want to prop them up and be successful. And not only is it the leadership team, but it's the people who are in the weeds doing the day-to-day stuff, keeping the lights on, fixing the things that break, and working on the projects that they deserve to be recognized just as much, as I do. I get a bunch of perks from being in this position, but I don't get the perks. It's the title that I hold that gets the perks. As soon as I'm here, I'm going to go back to not getting the perks. The perks are going to transfer to the next person. So it's not me. It's the title that commands the respect. But, some of the things we do to acknowledge, the people in the department is very simply, we celebrate work anniversaries here, and I originally started calling them work anniversaries. But then another person in another department kind of saw what I was doing and took my idea and morphed it and called it Potawatomi versaries. And I was like, oh, that is great. But that is a mouthful. Let's shorten it up to Potaversaries. So now we celebrate Potaversaries here as, on the day you have your anniversary here, we celebrate it. And it isn't extravagant. It is just a very simple, I post something on LinkedIn, and then I also send out an internal communication within the department just saying, hey, Jay just celebrated his 10-year anniversary. That's a milestone, right? 10 years at any organization is a big deal. And I try to be creative and fun, and I kind of look for pop culture to help me with that, or whatever my kids are into. If I can kind of steal something, they're big Minions fans right now. So I've been stealing a lot from the Minions and Gru and Despicable Me, but you got to look for inspiration where it comes, right?
That's awesome.
And besides, work anniversaries, birthdays, some people, birthdays are a big deal. Others don't care. But we just want to acknowledge that your birthday does occur, and I don't post it on LinkedIn because I don't want everybody, some people celebrating birthdays. So that's just something we do internally within the department. It's just a very simple message. Just wishing somebody a birthday, looking for inspiration. My daughter is a very big Dr. Seuss fan. And he has a book dedicated to someone celebrating their birthday. So I've been doing it for a while. I take a page from the book and then I quote it in the birthday message to the person. And, I know I'm eventually going to run out of pages, and it took the department a while to figure out what I was doing, but eventually they caught on what book I was quoting. But I think it's just a unique way to celebrate birthdays. I don't know what my second book is going to be, but I still have like 10 pages left. Happy birthday to you. from Dr. Seuss. And it just, acknowledging something simple goes a long way. And that's a way I felt I could put a fun twist on it just to differentiate what we're doing here. And one of the other things, I started doing is, I don't remember if we talked about it when we had our first, talk, but when I took this position, I was down, 3 managers out of 6. And that's hard to do. And I worked really hard to get that filled up because it would mean my job was easier. And I did it with those positions, and I've kind of gotten my hiring managers to do it. Is, when somebody is starting new at a position, it can be, awkward. It can be scary. People, when you interview, maybe what you interview is not what is presented. There might be some, people interview well, don't interview well. It's awkward. So what can we do to make that onboarding process easy? Very simple. Before they even start orientation here, just the hiring manager reaches out and asks a couple of questions. What's your favorite thing to eat? What's your favorite snack? What's your favorite thing to drink? What do you like to do in your spare time? And what size shirt do you wear? And, hopefully we get answers back to all the questions. And if not, we work with whatever we're provided. But when you come here, we want to make sure, if you're a Skittles fan and a Mountain Dew, there's a couple packs of Skittles and a couple cans of Mountain Dew at your desk. Doesn't mean a lot, but it means that we're listening to what you say is important to you. And we're here, we're an organization, we're a department, but we're a family, and we want to make everybody, want to work together. I see a lot of people say, on LinkedIn, it says a lot about what you think about work on, when it's Sunday and you're dreading going to work on Monday, right? I never want anybody to come dreading into work. So, just listening to what some of their favorite things are and just providing those, small gesture goes a long way, right?
I think I'm a big small gesture fan. It's the thing that I notice the most because it's so subtle, it's small, and if they can pay attention to the small, it means they can definitely pay attention to the big. And so if they're if my friends or my loved ones like pick something up that I said in passing and they apply that and give me a gift or something, that means way more to me than any big gesture, because it's like, whoa, you saw me in something that I didn't even make a big deal out of. And so I do think there's something really important about that. So yes, I am on board about that, the small gestures thing. But I think too, and this is, you kind of like alluded to it, there are big gestures as well in the sense of how you guys operate. You have loved being there for 17 years, but also you have risen and moved and done different things over the last 17 years. You were empowered, right? And I think the same thing for your employees. And I think you had mentioned too with the unreasonable hospitality, something that you guys do or should do is find what people love doing, find what they're passionate about, and give them the responsibility that that's associated with. Can you talk more about those sorts of culture things that you do to actually, it's not just to make them feel better. It actually is more beneficial for the business. It's 2 birds with 1 stone. So talk about those things as well.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things, it's a bigger gesture. We created, the leadership team here and I created the IT Excellence in Action program. So what that is the organization already awards manager of the quarter, right? But they didn't at the time do anything to acknowledge the people keeping the lights on, doing the day-to-day stuff, the grind, right? And that, to me, there was room for IT to do something, even if it's in our own department. So I sat down with all of our leaders and I said, we need to create a program to recognize those who are doing the work day in and day out. If you're in a supervisor or a managerial position, you're not eligible for this award, but we want to, acknowledge those that go above and beyond what the job description says you need to do. So we came up with this IT Excellence in Action program where you have to get nominated. You can either be nominated from somebody within the department or one of the business partners that we work with that said, hey, you went above and beyond. And then, with all the nominations, myself and my CIO, we take the top 3, and then we don't want to show any signs of favoritism. So we worked with a director of another department to say, hey, all right, we're going to give you, the top 3 nominations. You decide which one was the most worthy this quarter of going above and beyond. And then you get really cool prizes, right? There's a big plaque outside of the IT office space, that says IT Excellence in Action, like you see at Walmart. And it says quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. So you get your picture and, you get the public knowledge, not just of the IT department, but everyone else who walks past the department. And then you get some other cool perks along the way that, show that we're acknowledging you. You might get better parking, and then you might get a choice of one or two prizes for you to pick from. And that has gone over really well. And it's not something overly crazy, but it is a little bit bigger of a gesture. The prizes are a little bit bigger. We only do it quarterly, so we want to make the value, something and meaningful to the person. And that has been received, really well. And more about, empowering, team members. My boss and I are big on empowering. You don't need to run everything by us. We want you who's doing it. You work with the business units, you work with the table games dealers, you work with the slot attendants, you work with them, you have that personal relationship. You know what's going to make their job easier. You know what's going to make the guest experience make sense. Do it. And if it doesn't, well, all right, we'll talk about it later, but and see what we can do to correct it. But we're 100% empowering it. You don't need to run it by me. Hey, the Brewers are playing tonight. Can I put the Brewers game on, in this pit because a guest is asking for it? If a guest is asking for it and it's going to make their stay here more enjoyable, just do it. Right. If someone yells at you, they can come talk to me. Right. And you laugh, but that mindset didn't exist here, until a couple of years ago. And it takes time, culture and ideas don't shift overnight. You need to establish the idea, then you need to reinforce it, multiple times, for it to take hold. And, one of the things is we had, the person who ran the help desk originally when I inherited this job, technically was a superstar, not necessarily the best to lead the help desk for various reasons. Didn't want to let him go. I sat down, I knew where his talents were. I knew where his strengths were. How can we position him to still be with the organization, but utilize his talents and strengths more? And it meant for him going into a new position so that I could then fill the position of the help desk leader with somebody more looking for what I needed from the help desk. And it's been a win-win. The previous help desk manager has excelled and flourished in this new position with this new role, doing really more what he wanted to do. And then he has been a boon to that team. And I got a person in to lead the help desk the way it needed to be to change the culture and the mindset. And it's sometimes, evaluating what you have and thinking about how that talent can be utilized differently to better the organization.
But for that to happen, you need to understand, you need to be able to listen and know your people intimately. And you also need to know
Correct.
the needs of your business intimately, right? So we could talk about this all we want, but there's something here that's really essential, which is knowing your people and knowing your business. And I would imagine that is something that you guys kind of just embark on, really own.
I mean, for me, like I've been here 17 years, so I have a bunch of institutional knowledge about the organization. And I would say probably to the IT department, there isn't a lot of turnover here. Typically turnover is, I can't create positions out of thin air. If you want to grow to a leadership managerial position and I don't have any, I'm sorry, I can't help you, but I want to see you grow. And if that means you have to leave and take another job elsewhere so you can get that experience, how can I help you? You need a letter of recommendation. But with people not necessarily leaving all that frequently here, it means, yes, I get to know you both, as a work colleague and on a personal level, because we all talk about, what's cool and exciting. Is it Game of Thrones? Is it The Mandalorian? Is it The Penguin? Is it, whatever. So you get to know people and you kind of get to develop a sense of what they're good at, what they're passionate about. And it's just about listening. And are you actually listening? Like a good sign of a good listener is if they can take what you just said and explain it back to you in their own words and convey your same ideas. Like that's a sign of a true listener who is good at listening. If you can do that, you've mastered the art of listening, and it just takes, it takes time. When I took this position, I think the expectation was I was going to come in, day 2 and start making radical changes. Even though I've been here for years and I knew changes I wanted to make, there's value in, just absorbing in the new position what is going on and getting a different perspective of what you're responsible for. And maybe you might see something differently where this preconceived notion you had really, wasn't accurate, and sitting in a different chair, you'd be like, oh, I understand why this was happening now. It makes more sense. I still think there's a better way to do it, but I don't need to make a radical change. Like I didn't start making changes, I think, until month, 3, because I just wanted to get a feel for being in this new position.
Yeah. Things take time. That's something I had to learn the hard way growing up as a, young person. We want everything fast, but obviously things need to be built. I wanted to quickly go back to the two things that your CIO really implemented, which is we do it if it improves the guest experience, or we do it if it improves the customer service experience, which then improves the guest experience. Obviously, when someone comes in and sets those two things in place, there's a difference between theory and concept and then actual application. Things take time, like you said. Like, what was sort of the transition and the progression of your team to really, and I guess the organization as a whole, to embrace those mentalities?
It took time, and for some it happened faster than others because everyone adapts to change in a different way. Like I remember when he first started, we weren't like knee deep in a project to migrate to Office 365. We were maybe like a quarter of the way through, and he just pretty much said, "Nope, we're not ready to do this project. It's not. I can see it's not going well. Let's pause and reevaluate. And what need is it improving? What customer service, facet is improving?" And I didn't have a good answer. He's like, "All right, I'm not saying no. I'm just saying not right now. Let's reevaluate." And it just, a lot of it is FaceTime and just talking through what's happening with the organization. I mean, I learned so much from him, just, regular meetings and like, "All right, here's the problem. This is what we've done in the past. What have you done at your previous organization? Like, what's your mindset around it?" And just absorbing that knowledge, and then me taking that and then, not reciprocating it or like regurgitating it, but applying what I learned with my leadership team when I have one-on-one meetings with them so that we can get lockstep and be in the same, on the same path at the same time, at the same step to be successful. I think it was last week's podcast, and I know this isn't going to air in timelines, but I think, I don't remember the exact question, but it was like, how do you get success from meeting with the people that report to you? And I heard that question trying to, to see what else I could bring from a different perspective to our meeting today. And I think what has really made my one-on-one successful is I don't really talk or drive those. That's the time for my leadership to have with me to talk about the things that concern them, the roadblocks they have, the problems they have, the status updates. Now, yes, there are things I want to cover, and I do have an agenda of things I need to make sure we talk about, but I don't talk until like the last 10 minutes unless they ask me questions or what my thoughts are. I want them to make sure that they're steering it. And when they come with problems, I like to have, like the 1-3-1 mentality where there's one problem. What are three possible solutions that we have to the problem? You might not have that answer now. You might have to go away and come back either later in the afternoon or tomorrow with, these are the three solutions. Let's talk about it. There's got to be the best solution, an okay solution, and not a problem. And what's the best for our current situation? That's the one we're going to act upon. Like, they don't learn and grow if I give them all the answers because they become dependent on you to solve all the problems. I don't have the time to do that. I need them to think critically, think outside the box, and solve problems. And if I help them get to the answer, that's my goal. That's my job. You have the answer. You just need that reinforcement that it is the right answer.
And the belief in themselves that they can come up with those answers and see those problems. By allowing this to happen, then they get confidence and they get trust, and then they do it, and then it works, and then they know that they're capable, and then it keeps on going and going and going.
It just snowballs from there, and then it's fun to see. Yep.
Yeah, no, that's actually incredible. A lot of this, like we said, now 100% we need a part 3, because I'm like, there's like literally a whole section we haven't talked about yet. But we talk a lot about these things take time to build, and culture is huge, but again, relationships do take time to build that trust and that stability. But the last year and 3 months, you've mentioned everything has been moving so fast, and there are things that you've never really done before, and you've had to figure it out and be flexible, right? And it's this saying of like, you got to go slow first in order to move fast. How have you guys kind of tackled or come into these projects with, the healthy sense of fear and anxiety of like, we've never done this before, but the confidence too that we will get this done? Like, how do you just take these projects in stride and execute them the best way that you can within a time constraint?
Yeah. I think, what we just talked about of, snowballing, that you do one project that you never thought you'd be capable of doing, and you see you're able to do it, in the time constraints you were given, either on budget or under budget, and you delivered it a week ahead of time. That just builds confidence naturally. And when, like I mentioned, we don't have a high turnover right here. Like I've got a core group that is solid rock stars. Like, we start just building that cycle of, yeah, we got this. We don't know how we're going to do it yet, but I have trust in my people who lead my teams that, they know what they know, and they're going to collaborate with their peers and be like, all right, for the concert, the two biggest things was, all right, every concert, there's screens that videos and lights go on, and there's sound. And then everyone is, he brings out their smartphone and records the opening song, or they live stream on Facebook. So from our perspective, how do we ensure in that small area that's going to be highly densely populated, do we give our guests the best experience to be all of them on Facebook Live streaming the start of Snoop Dogg, right? Do we have to have extra strong cellular service, or do we go the Wi-Fi route? And then we just, you can't tackle all the problems. You got to kind of divvy them up into smaller, more reasonable, manageable problems, and then just start researching, what other people do, and then presenting, hey, if we go cellular route, we have to buy all this equipment that we'll just have to, own for the lifetime. Or there's companies that just stand up Wi-Fi for like festivals that, yep, you say what you needed for 2 days, we can handle this capacity, at this speed. It's all a matter of breaking down problems into smaller, more reasonable, manageable problems, and then, knocking it out and going on to the next one. And the important thing is, if you think something's going to work and it doesn't, how do you pivot? Because I remember for Snoop Dogg, the way we had things laid out, we had the idea that it would be easier for people to buy alcohol by purchasing a bracelet, and that bracelet says you get, 5 beers or whatever, and those bracelets would be sold alongside the merchandise tent. And we didn't, whatever we were thinking at the time, we did not put enough point of sale terminals in the merchandise tent for people to buy bracelets for alcohol and buy Snoop Dogg merch, and the line backed up. So how do you, we screwed up. How do we pivot? All right, where can we get point of sale terminals from real quickly to get it out here to help alleviate this line? And the team, pulled together, and I think we grabbed like 8 additional point of sale terminals. It took like 45 minutes to an hour to be able to find them inside the building, get them outside, get cabling in place and get them stood up, but it helped alleviate the pressure of the line and turned a bad problem from continuing to be a bad problem into a much more manageable solution that, helped with the guest experience.
And I think this is key, because it's not like you don't let a failure remain a failure. You don't beat yourself up over it. And without that mentality, the team automatically goes into problem solving mode, right? Like, how can we alleviate the situation? And it's this flexible mindset, this not overbearing mindset that allows this freedom to think and not beat yourselves up over it. And I think there's something really, really powerful about that. I realize we do have 5 minutes left, and this has just been an IT culture conversation. And so that's awesome, because we have like 4 other topics to talk about. So then I obviously, and this will probably remain on the podcast so everyone knows that this is happening, I will message you again and be like, all right, when are we doing part 3? Because we need to talk about
part 3.
I want to, because I want to dive deeper into the actual technology, right? What it means to, you had mentioned that in that marketplace, right? There's literally, except for one, no cashiers. It's all technology. And it's all technology. And so how was that implemented? How did that happen? And what are the payoffs? All of that I want to talk about. But obviously we're at time. So I just kind of want to close for you with, in the terms of IT culture, over the last year and 3 months, what have you learned and over the last year and 3 months regarding IT culture? And what are you kind of excited for moving forward?
Sure. Before that, I want to talk about one other thing I did with the leadership team here to try to forge ahead what the culture is going to be. Every organization has a mission, vision, and values. And our organization just refreshed that. And I thought, what better time to develop IT's own mission and vision to complement what the organization set forth. So the leadership team here and I, got together, and it didn't happen overnight. It took a couple of sessions, but like, what do we want to state as our mission and vision? And I thought we put something together really good. And I wanted to have the mindset that we are the best IT department in the state of Wisconsin to come work for. And my CIO said, that's a very lofty goal. why don't we focus on part of the state? How about southeastern Wisconsin? Because that's the, the mega metropolitan area we are on. And he said, if you achieve being the best IT department, you can tackle statewide. And I said, that's fair. That's reasonable. So we said, we're going to become the best IT department, not only from a culture standpoint, but from driving technology and innovation. And we came up with this really great statement. And then I made the decision to put it out on LinkedIn and challenge the rest of the IT leaders in the state of Wisconsin and southeastern Wisconsin to be better than me. Because I think if we're pushing other leaders to be better, it drives us to be better ourselves. It's the whole thing I mentioned about the state of Illinois opening more casinos. We have to improve our experience and our customer service because there's more fish in the pond. That if I say this is what I'm doing and I'm challenging you to be better than me, you might do something better. And I'm like, oh, that's a really great idea. I need to step it up. How can I step it up? And then it's a win-win for IT, the IT culture, the IT environment as a whole in the state of Wisconsin. And then that's something I took great pride in coming up with that mission and vision with the leadership team here and sharing that out. So for those in the area, I'm still challenging all of you, be better than the IT department here at Potawatomi Casino and Hotel.
But extremely, extremely healthy competition, the competition is healthy.
Yeah. But it's the last year and a half has been really, great for me in a growth mindset, not only, learning from a technology standpoint and being challenged to do things that I never thought possible, but I've taken great pride in seeing, the team within IT grow and, seeing, self-growth from, there wasn't a lot of room for growth. It was either you were an administrator, an engineer, or a manager. Well, there's a lot of flavors in between. There can be senior positions, there can be lead positions, and working with the teams to develop that maturity process that there is room to grow. So someone doesn't need to leave the organization. It's, there's all the cost analysis that it's much cheaper to keep somebody, but just train them and grow them than to hire somebody new and train them, right? So how do we grow that? And having that, working on that in the department and seeing people step into those roles and be successful and grow and challenging, the leadership team to do things that they didn't traditionally do or we weren't doing up until 2 years ago, and then getting them outside of their comfort zone and seeing them like, yes, I can do this. It was scary at first, but like everything that's scary, once you do it, it's not scary anymore. And to see that professional growth and development has really been something I've enjoyed and has kept me, I want to see more of it. So what can I do to bring it out from the rest of my team has been really fulfilling and satisfying for me.
Yeah. Well, I want to put this on air so everyone knows this. Adam is probably one of my favorite people to talk to, but this has definitely solidified like one of my favorite like podcast guests because you make my job easy. Just hearing you be so passionate and talk about the details and really dive in makes my job easy, but I think is very, very practical for people who are listening because it's stories and it's through actual experience where we actually get to learn from each other. And so I just want to say, I really appreciate you as a guest and you as a conversationalist. And, the best way to know if someone is a good listener is if, like you said, if they're able to regurgitate. But I think also the best way to know if someone's a good listener is if they are also a good talker and you communicate in a way that helps me be a better listener and also be a better communicator. And so I think in that way, you were a natural fit for something like this, but also a natural fit for the job that you have. So I just wanted to acknowledge that as well. And so,
well, thank you very much. I can't say any of the ideas that have been successful here have been my own. All great ideas germinate from somewhere else, and then it's what you do to mature them, then make them, successful where you are. And I hope, the people listening, to this podcast when it's released, they hear, one nugget of like, oh, that's actually something really easy and actually a really good idea. I already know how to manipulate it to make it successful at my environment. And if I can help, another IT professional, someone who's starting off in IT leadership, or maybe someone who's crafty, seasoned veteran, reshape what they're doing, I'm more than happy to do that. And I appreciate you having me on for a second time today.
And it will be a third and maybe even a fourth. Like I if you want it, like
yeah,
and
no,
I
absolutely. But it was funny how this came to be because I'm like, why don't we just talk about this stuff and see where it naturally flows and goes, and we'll just go from there. And then, when I was looking at my calendar this weekend, I'm like, oh, like that sounded really good in my head. Like I hope I have enough to talk about to fill a podcast. And it's funny that we didn't even get to talk about artificial intelligence, weird things and like going into the technical stuff of what we did. So, I'm happy that I was able to at least fill the air
Yeah, well, it was filled with meaningful stuff. So I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate your conversation, and I cannot wait for the next one and the next one and the next one. Adam, thank you for your time again, and I wish you all the
Absolutely.
best.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Take care. We hope you enjoyed this Keeping IT Real episode, and thank you for listening. Make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss a future episode. This podcast is all about celebrating and connecting professional heroes who work hard at IT every day. To continue the conversation and learn how VCOM can help you better buy, manage, and pay for your technology, visit us at vcomsolutions.com. Until next time.